back to the biggest Man United fan channel in the land. I nearly got that wrong then. This is the United Stand countdown to kickoff. It is week 2 in the Europa League campaign. Obviously, week 1 didn't get off to a great start. 1-1 draw with FC Twente. Now we face FC Porto. This will not be easy. We'll be bringing you all the team news as it breaks. And me and my 2 guests will be getting through that. We'll be seeing if we agree. First of all, I would like to say a very warm welcome back. Not been on for a while with myself. Usmaan, how are we?
I'm not too bad, You know, it's good to see you as always. You're looking rather lovely.
Thank you very much. It's the top, isn't it?
Yeah, listen, no sponsorships. But it's good to obviously be your hosting as well. So, you know, you love to see it.
And Daniel, welcome back again, mate.
Yeah, hopefully it's a better
The young prodigal son of the United Stand returns. Obviously, Usmaan, I've seen you on the forum, mate. We've had 4 days. I know everybody be like, well, why are we starting with the negativity? But it's been a massive week for Manchester United. In terms of where you are at this moment in time, you've had time to sleep on it. I don't think you overreacted with what you said. Probably spoke for a lot of Manchester United fans, but it is match day now. We try and get in the match day mood. But have you changed the way you're thinking, or is it just a bit? Let's see where we go this evening with this result.
To be honest, look, going to Porto away is always going to be difficult, regardless of how you go into the games. I mean, they're notoriously a Champions League team. I know, obviously, we're playing them in the Europa League, but nonetheless, it's a very difficult game. I think going off the back of that game in the manner which we are, just makes it even worse. I mean, we've got so much pressure on ourselves. We all know what the situation with the manager in terms of. He's got the 2 games supposedly to, salvage his career, or a managerial career, should we say. Yeah, for me personally, I just need to see a reaction. I think a lot of times, fans, including myself, the biggest disappointment is, we get absolutely slapped by a Tottenham Hotspur or whoever it may be. And the game after, it just seems the same. It's not really any difference. Like, I feel like under previous managers in particular, maybe let's say Oli, for example, maybe he's better at getting the message across because he's a Red himself. And I feel like we have bounced back, and not in terms of result, but in terms of performance. And I've not really seen that under Ten Hag, so that's the biggest thing for me. I really need to see a reaction from the boys because it just wasn't good enough.
And that's the thing, Daniel, isn't it? I've put down here, embarrassing, shambolic, which it was. You have time to dissect it. I don't think you change your opinion. I think in terms of supporters, I think a lot of people maybe lost a hell of a lot of faith in Erik Ten Hag, even people like myself. I mean, if I'd have had a microphone put in front of me on Sunday after that game, I'm at the point where I'm saying, I think he sacked himself at the end of the day with substitutions and that. Again, we will lift the mood very slightly, but Daniel didn't have his chance on the United Stand to have his say, but sum up Sunday wasn't great, was it?
I was just saying to you before, wasn't it? I think that's the worst half of football I've ever seen United play in my entire life against Spurs. I think it was just so bad. Everything was half. It was a half press. The passes were half too short. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong in that half, and United weren't up to the standards that we know that they can be. Then the rumour mill comes about of Erik Ten Hag losing his jobs, and all of a sudden the game against Porto today and Villa, if he doesn't win them, he's going to get sacked. I highly doubt that he will get sacked, even if we do lose both of those games.
Don't think he will?
No, I don't think he will. Just because it's too close in the season. We're too soon. Yeah, we're too soon into the season. 5 to 7 games in. Bring that to 9 games. I don't feel like with the structure that he's only had a structure since Ineos have come in since the start of January, and they've been implemented that in the summer. So I don't think they're going to sack him straight away when this is his first season under Ineos, under a structure which United haven't had since David Gill and Sir Alex Ferguson since 2013. So I feel like to sack him this early on would be stupid.
Big mistake.
Yeah. I think anyway. Yeah.
Good point. Pran Tech Gaming, welcome to the United Stand, the United Stand Members Club. Usmaan, so you've said that you expect, or do you expect these players to raise their performance levels from what it was on Sunday? I mean, surely it can't get any worse, or can it? Please, no.
I like to hope it's not getting worse than that. As Dan correctly said, I think in particular the passing was the biggest thing for me, especially in the first 5 to 10 minutes. I felt like we definitely had opportunities to hurt Spurs. I mean, their goal essentially came from us in the final third, Rashford and Garnacho, miscommunication, then obviously Van de Ven absolutely.
You certainly can't be as open against,
course,
a Porto team steeped in sort of European history. Absolutely. Like ourselves, this is a kind of fixture, not so long ago, but you would have associated with Champions League football. Definitely. You think of Mourinho running down the touchline, them kind of things come back to haunt you. But yeah, I mean, in terms of Sunday, I mean, where would you have laid the blame? Let's play the blame game for a moment. Or is it a mixture of both?
It's absolutely a mixture of both.
Somebody needs to take accountability, manager and players?
No, of course. I mean, I'm not, that deluded to just say it's complete the manager. At the end of the day, there's no right that any player should be running through the team. I mean, that's not Erik ten Hag's fault, is it? I mean, I understand he set us up in a certain way, but even if he set us up in the worst possible way, somebody's got to take accountability and clatter him at some point in that run. There's no way. He's ran about 60 yards, played the ball in, and not anyone's got next to him to put in the challenge.
Isn't it?
So yeah, the player's 100% accountable. Again, the passing was inexcusable. It's like Sunday League standards, if that. So yeah, the players 100% have to take accountability, and I'm going to be watching the players closely to see which ones actually rectify their runs, because you can say what you want about the manager, but they've got to prove themselves as well.
Is that what you think, Daniel? You definitely need, if we play anything like we did on Sunday, we're going to get absolutely battered. So we need to see an upturn in that. It does come down to team selection as well. I think we'll probably get into this now, actually, and make sure you get your super chats in, make sure you get your messages in. What team would you like to see? Do you feel like Erik ten Hag is under, huge pressure at this moment? It is a massive job, and I think we've all read what's going on in the press. It isn't becoming any easier on the eye, especially with the manner of defeats. You think, fresh in the memory, Liverpool 3-0, Tottenham 3-0, and you kind of look at these games and maybe we've won the games that we should have. We're at that level at the minute. We don't want to be. You will hear people saying that it is a process. You do hear this. But, I mean, before the team news breaks, we will obviously break it to you once we get it. But I think we should probably try and agree on a team that... It's hard to do this because Erik ten Hag will have his way, which is always totally different to what any of us would do. I'm going to start with Onana, Daniel. Is there any kind of chance that Andre Onana does not start this evening, or is it 100% you're my goalkeeper?
Yeah, I think he has to start. He's been United's Player of the Month, as it was announced today. I think it would be a no-brainer not to start him. If Altay Bayindir starts, then even more questions start to come into play. The game against Newport County, yes, he was good, but he wasn't as good as Onana can be. So yeah, I think Onana's a clear starter.
Usmaan, Onana has had a little bit of bad press. He could player of the month today. I didn't even know that.
Right, I mean, it's not hard to win it, but
again, it could be a little overreaction to. I know the Spurs game. There was certain people mentioning that Onana maybe a bit been able to prevent a couple of them sort of goals. Again, it depends where you sit on that argument. But I mean, playing out from the back, he certainly brought a different dimension to United. But the one thing I've kind of cemented in my United Stand Hall of Fame sort of sayings is the fact that we seem to have bought a goalkeeper whose weakness is shot stopping, which is crazy in a way because you think it's like buying a striker whose weakness is scoring goals or a defender whose weakness is tackling, and it is a bit mind-boggling, but at the same time I understand that Erik ten Hag wanted this keeper that played out from the back, but playing out hasn't been an issue, has it? You think back to the Champions League campaign last season, there was some kind of horrendous mistakes that seemed very, very easy for a goalkeeper of his age. He's not the De Gea that joined United at a very young age that was being targeted. Yeah,
I mean, I kind of disagree in terms of like the playing out from the back. I don't actually think it's been that great.
Not better than when De Gea was here?
I mean, of course it's better than De Gea's, but not what I expected. I don't know if it's an Onana thing or if it's a tactical thing. We're not set up in a way that complements the way he plays football. I mean, I was really expecting when Onana to come in that we would start more attacks, especially with the players like Lisandro Martinez, who are line breakers in terms of their passing. So I'm a bit disappointed, I've got to be honest. I do think we should need to do more. He does tend to go along a lot. Again, that's maybe not his fault. Might be a tactical thing, so we don't know. But yeah, in terms of today's game, he has to start. I mean, he's had Player of the Month, so yeah, he's probably earned his spot.
Yeah, make sure you keep getting your comments in. I can see you all in there. It's great. Countdown to kick-off. Obviously building up to FC Porto against Manchester United. Right, let's get into the back four then. I mean, horrendous against Spurs, but at the end of the day, who wasn't horrendous? You know, if Erik ten Hag made 11 changes this evening, you could probably look at it and say, well, fair play. You know, at least he's going to mix it up. I think we all know that he won't do that. I think he has said, you know, this game, it wasn't a one-off because it's happened before. You will be looking for a reaction. But in terms of a back four, Daniel, do you think it's going to be roughly the same? I mean, obviously, Luke Shaw being missing is huge at this moment in time. So you would expect Dalot left, Mazraoui.
I think it will be unchanged. I think it will be.
And then I think he might change up the centre-back pairing, you know.
What, Maguire?
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
For who, though?
I think it might be for De Ligt. That's my opinion.
I mean, look, I don't think any of the defenders covered themselves in glory. I think they were all as bad as each other for different reasons. I must say, Lisandro Martinez has been extremely disappointing. I mean, he's a fan favourite. I mean, I love him as well, but post-injury, I just don't think he's been the same. I just don't see the same sharpness in him. He gets caught out a lot as well at the moment. I think his positional sense has been poor. I can't remember if it was the second goal or the third goal. He was absolutely in no man's land, essentially, and his positioning for that wasn't good. And again, De Ligt hasn't covered himself in glory in that Spurs game. So, you know, it's hard for me to sit here and say that they should keep their players, because if he does put a Maguire in, I can't begrudge him, because, like I said, the players ahead of him don't really deserve the spot at the moment. So if he changes it, obviously it's a big call. It will be interesting, but yeah, either way, I think the midfield in front is more important, to be honest.
So we probably agree that the back four picks itself, which I think the comment section is highly agreeing with. What I would say, I was going to say Danielson, like the Karate Kid then, Danielson. What would we say? I put down here on Mazraoui. I think we need to put a bit of credit on his name as well. In terms of the transfer fee, obviously the lowest out of the sort of big name players that come to Manchester United this summer. Has he kind of taken you by surprise? It makes it very interesting. When Luke Shaw comes back, you kind of assume that he would take this left-back spot, United's first team left-back. And then on the right-hand side, it doesn't really make it the Mazraoui Dalot thing. I don't think it's as clear-cut as just putting Dalot back on the right and taking Mazraoui out. But I think that's testament to the way that Mazraoui's been performing.
Yeah, he's been United's probably best signing, really, if you think about it. He's put in really good, solid performances. Defensively, he's been brilliant. I thought he would have been exposed at times, because I've seen him play at Ajax, and when he comes up against a pacey defender, he does struggle. But in the Premier League, he seems fine, really. I thought he's had some good performances. Going forwards as well, he's also been really good, having Ten Hag being able to invert him like he does with Dalot, who comes in as well, and Mazraoui can come in. So to do that with both players, especially in the Palace game as well, when you think United had so much possession, and with Dalot coming in and Mazraoui into midfield, that helped so much. And I think he's been a great signing, and that's why, he will start today.
Flash Talks in the chat has just said, good to have Kev back. You know it's bad when even Kev says Eric has to go. Where did I just say this? I said before, if you'd have asked me on Sunday after the game and I'd have had a microphone in my... I said he's sacked himself. I didn't say it was time to go. That's a very... a politician answer there, right there. But I see you in this chat. And a lot of shouts for Danielson now, because I've said that. That's probably going to stick with you. But let's go into the midfield. Usmaan, I can see you itching to get this one, because the midfield area trying to predict is always a bit of a minefield. There's so many options. Does he go for Casemiro? Does he bring him in? I can't really say fresh legs in Casemiro, because everybody's going to laugh and say, we've got Ugarte. Again, if we're going off the Sunday's result, didn't cover himself in much glory, but who did? Yeah. Which is why we're hoping that we see a kind of upturn in form of these players this evening. They're going to have to be at the races. But as a midfield three, hopefully we'll get the team news very, very shortly, but we're just trying to predict it at this moment in time. What would be your three?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go very rogue. This is like 0%
Love it.
chance
Go
of
on.
happening. But I've got reasoning, so hear me out. I would go...
As long as you can back it up with a reasoning, I like that. Yeah.
I'm going to go Ugarte. Well, this is what I would do. I'd go Ugarte, Casemiro, because we most definitely need a bit of stability in front of the back line. It's been an absolute shambles, as we would all probably agree. And in the number 10, the most deserving player has to be Christian Eriksen. I just don't understand how he has not been tried at number 10. I mean, I know it's not going to be popular, but I think Bruno Fernandes has been absolutely woeful this season. I mean, I'm not going to get into my personal opinion for longer, but Kobe Mainoo, we don't know the situation. Obviously, it was reported that he's back in training. I don't think it's necessary to rush him back into the team. We have got other more senior players away from home against a Porto team that doesn't, particularly concede that many goals.
Do you think it's a good time to give Mainoo
just give him a rest?
If we're in a position to be resting.
He's not, but I think that would be selfish of the manager if he put his own best interest ahead of the players. For me, I don't see a situation where we need to rush Mainoo back into the team. I mean, as we all know, he went off injured. He's back in training. Of course, they were there assessing him. They know better than us, of course. But the way I see it is Bruno doesn't warrant his spot. He's not been good enough. He's just got sent off. Casemiro and Ugarte will bring stability in front of the back line. I know it's extremely defensive, but the truth of the matter is we need all the protection we can get in this moment of time. And Eriksen has that quality to unlock the door. So for me, yeah, like I said, it's a rogue shout. It's got literally like 0.99% of it happening. Other guys are ill or something. There's no other way, but yeah, that's what I would go for.
You know who usually sits in that seat? Oh, yeah,
Ricky.
Ricky, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure. I think there's something in that seat that possesses people. So we've got to shout for Eriksen at 10. Yeah, don't fancy Bruno. Don't be playing Bruno. I'm telling. There's something in that seat that just.
He's smiling wherever he is.
Or it could just be coincidental, that Usmaan has the same kind of feelings as Ricky, and a lot of people agree with Ricky.
So would you not say Bruno deserves to be dropped? Or do you think just play him because he's Bruno?
Oh, I've said it the last couple of weeks. Yeah. I just found it funny, the shouts for Eriksen. And the last, prior to the Spurs game, Eriksen has been brilliant.
Yeah,
he played 4 games in a row, which sort of quashed that kind of thing that, he can't play 2 games in a week?
Yeah, in a week, yeah.
He threw that one out, and I could get Ten Hag's thinking for the Spurs game. He might have thought about legs, but I think that's a great shout, talking about the number 10 role, because he won't have to do that if he has got that enforcement behind him. Absolutely. In Casemiro and Ugarte. We have actually got a super chat there, which is bang on topic, so thank you very much to United One. It says, I'm curious. Come on, mate, tell me, why are you curious? He says, what have you guys made of Ugarte so far? It's a tough one to say at this. Yeah. Over to Danielson. Wax on, wax off. What do we think? Ugarte so far?
Like we said before, it was just United brought him in.
Tough to judge him at this moment in time. Very little,
to adjust to the league. And Luis Enrique didn't want him in his squad because he didn't progress the ball like he would have wanted to. Hence why now they've got João Neves in who can progress the ball in that style. So Manchester United have brought in a defensive midfielder who passes backwards and sideways, and not so much forwards. And like you say, he needs to adjust to the league. I fully get that, being in Liga, and it's not the same tempo as the Premier League. But when he's receiving the ball recently, he's taken 5 touches on the ball and then passing it. You can't do that in the Premier League.
You don't have that time.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's going to take time for him to adjust. There is a player in there, but when, like I do say, when he does adjust to that style of play, he will be a really key player for United. I think he can be not as good as Kante, obviously, but that style of player.
Wow, if he's even half the player that Kante wasn't, achieves half of what he. But we're on to something good, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. So I just think give him a bit of time. Don't rush him into games, especially big games in Europe when there's a lot of pressure on the team like today. Don't rush him in, and that's why I'd start Casemiro in midfield. So, and another 3. So Usmaan has gone for Casemiro, Ugarte, and Eriksen as the 10. What would be yours? So I'm going for a bit of control in midfield. Porto play a high line, and they have a high press too, a bit like how Spurs did. So I've gone for Casemiro in midfield. If Ten Hag says to Eriksen and Bruno, keep tight, which if Ugarte did with Casemiro, like you said, it might not happen, but to just pure control on the game, because these players are going to be getting pressed every single minute of the game by Porto, so they need to control the ball in order to stop that happening. So for me, Casemiro as the defensive midfielder, and then Eriksen beside him, and then Bruno just a little bit in front of him.
Just going back to the defence, Red Armies just said Maguire absolutely deserves to start. De Ligt and Martin has been shocking relegation form. Maguire saved Ten Hag's job. Current centre-backs getting him sacked. Is that an overreaction, Usmaan?
I mean, as
a collective, I think Sunday's game's fresh in a lot of people's memory.
I understand where he's coming from. I do think De Ligt has been good. I think that was just an awful game from it, and I'm not gonna defend him for that game. And I think with Martinez as well, I think he's actually been worse than De Ligt, if I'm being honest. I think Martinez is extremely fortunate that Euro's not fit. So I think Euro would 100% be starting this game if he was available for selection. But look, I wouldn't go as far as say Maguire deserves to start in the sense that, you know, he's warranted it based on merit. I'd say it more so in the sense that because the other two have just been awful. I don't actually think Maguire's covered himself in any glory this season, or obviously the previous season. So the way I see it is he can't do worse. It's the way I see it off the back of that performance. So if he starts, I won't begrudge it, but Eriksen will have to down that sword if Maguire is the one that costs us.
So do you two actually think this is a great game to throw Casemiro into?
Yeah, I think so. Like I was saying, give Ugarte a rest.
Just for the fact of the game, who it's against, Europa League, the kind of, let's say, pace of the game. It's not a Premier League game, like you just said before, where it's 100 miles an hour.
And I do get that Ugarte did play for Sporting Lisbon, so he will know Porto fairly well. Equally, though, Casemiro has played at Porto too. He's an experienced player, and you would think that experience would shine in this fixture today. So,
do you think there's any chance one day, and I know Bruno got his free game ban kind of overturned. There's probably some United fans like Usmaan, like Ricky, that'll be out there thinking, I wish he hadn't have had it overturned. And it sounds crazy, this, but
no, I did say
it is a place. Did you?
Yeah.
Of course you did. It is a place of the team where we've looked at recently. It's such a vital part of the team, and you think. When you looked at that free game ban, you thought, well, this is his chance now to change it and stumble upon it, because he seems very, very reluctant to take Bruno out now, whether it's because he's captain or whatever it is. But do you think that's actually an opportunity missed? Well, you've just said you did say that.
Look, first and foremost, I don't actually think it was a red card. So I actually think they made the right decision. So just to clarify that.
Can I just say, sorry, we've just had breaking news through the United stand that Casemiro does start. So bang on topic. We've literally just finished that sort of conversation. Yeah. Daniel and Usmaan both saying why they would have chose Casemiro for this game. We can bring it to you that Casemiro does start. Sorry to cut you off, Usmaan.
Oh, no, it's all right. Yeah, look, for me, I think it'd do Bruno a favour as well. I feel like, especially in that Tottenham game, he was very uncharacteristic in that first 5-10 minutes in terms of like, he looked like he genuinely was nervous when he's touching the ball. Look, for me, I don't think he doesn't look after the ball particularly well in general, but I've seen a different side of him. He actually looked like he was struggling in terms of like his confidence. That was the first time I'd seen him like lacking confidence in terms of like the way he was like sort of his mannerism, so to speak. But yeah, look, I just think you got to play players on merit sometimes, and I think Eriksen for me has been absolutely fantastic when he's played. He surprised me. I would 100% sold him.
I think he's took a lot of people by surprise.
I would have definitely sold him. I'm not gonna lie and say, oh, you know, I saw this coming for whatever reason. But look, I'm all here for Eriksen's redemption arc. But yeah, I just think it makes sense. I mean, as Dan rightly said, Casemiro is a good game for Casemiro. The reason I would play Ugarte with him instead of resting him is mainly for the protection. The screening is desperately needed from the back line. And I feel like Eriksen has the capabilities to obviously, you know, complement the front three. And the difference between Eriksen and Bruno Fernandes is that Eriksen's a bit more calm on the ball. He's less erratic in terms of his decision making. He has that composure, which is something that we have been screaming out for in the final third. And he has the ability, like Bruno Fernandes, to be fair to him, to pick the killer pass more times than none. So for me, Eriksen should really be playing this game. I wouldn't really want to see him and Bruno together, but I've got a strong feeling that would be the midfield that Ten Hag goes with.
We do have some more breaking news as per our very own Sam C. Just lovely this. I love the way it's working out in the countdown to kick-off show. Just as we were ready to discuss the front three, I've just been informed through the earpiece that Ahmad starts this game, which is great. A player that didn't start at the weekend, but it does tie us in nicely to ask you, Dan, front three, what would you be going for in this game? I love the way you break it down here.
I'm not just saying it's because he's just been announced either, but I did put Ahmad as my player to watch. I think he's going to be key in the game. I spoke about control. He's so good on the half turn, especially when he tries to get past the defender. So yeah, definitely have him on the right. Mm-hmm. And then on the left, Garnacho and Rashford, it's weighing it up. It's a tough decision. I'd probably go Garnacho just because of how direct United need to be. We talk about getting in behind. Garnacho can receive the ball and take his man on, and he does it every single time virtually, unlike Rashford, you could say sometimes, when he does hold the ball up and pass it back. And if that does happen, I spoke about Porto's press, they'll be on United just like that. So I'd start Garnacho, and then up front, I'd obviously play Zirkzee. I think it's a no-brainer, really. Yeah,
I was going to say, I mean, against Spurs, it was Garnacho, Zirkzee, Zirkzee, Rashford, Garnacho, wasn't it? So, I mean, something needs to change there. In terms of the forward line, Usmaan, would you agree with that?
I mean, I agree with everything what Dan said, but I would change Rashford for Garnacho. Just to comment to Ahmad, he was my player to watch as well. For me, the biggest mistake that Ten Hag has made is not play Ahmad against Tottenham and Liverpool. They're the two games Ahmad's not starting. We've lost both of them 3-0. And before people say, no, I'm not saying, if just one Ahmad Diallo starts that, it completely changes the fortune or the trajectory of those games. But the importance of a player with Ahmad and his qualities, picking that pass, as I mentioned with Eriksen, especially against a Highland where there's ample opportunity to play the ball in behind. You need the player with the quality to pick that pass. And I don't think Garnacho and Rashford necessarily possess that. But that is actually the reason I would play Rashford. I think he possesses it more than Garnacho. I don't really like the way Garnacho...
You would start Rashford this evening?
Yeah, the only reason being is because I do think Rashford does have the capabilities of playing that ball in behind more so than Garnacho does. You do see when Rashford cuts in, he looks for that pass. Whether he executes it or not is a different story, but at least he's got it somewhat in his locker. I just don't think Garnacho looks up enough for me, my personal opinion. Also, I just think Rashford... I think it's hard to really say because both of them statistically have been similar, but he kind of found his feet again, and it was a bit bizarre that he got dropped that next game. Obviously, people are saying he got rotated. I think we need to just ride the crest of the Marcus Rashford, purple patch wave.
It was strange that the way, a lot of people read into it that something...
He does tend to do well in these kind of games. I mean, obviously, Dan, correctly alluded to the fact that they press so highly, but I think these games kind of suit Rashford the way he kind of plays his space behind. He's going to probably be more 1v1 against the defender, ability to take him on, shoot, that kind of thing. So, yeah, Ahmad for his ability to pick the pass and Rashford for... a bit more of an ability to pick a pass than Garnacho. Do
you agree with that as a front three? I think for what it's worth, I would have gone with Ahmad, Garnacho and Zirkzee. That would have been my three. I totally understand it's horses for courses. Yeah. Rashford, you could look at it, but again, I just look at some of these players at the moment. Rashford, I just don't know where I'm at with that at the minute. It's 1 week he's up, 1 week he's down. I think Garnacho definitely deserves to play. Ahmad, for some reason, has become some kind of fall guy that he can win the player of the month, United's player of the month, then be left out. Then he brings him on when we're 3-0 down. I don't know what signal that's kind of sending out to Ahmad, but there is something I wanted to get into later. I know you can't, spoiler alert, the two of them, that was my one to watch. There's the one to watch segment gone down for later on. But Zirkzee, another player in the kind of Mazraoui camp where you look at him. Personally, I didn't know much about him before he'd come to United, but he come for it was a half decent fee, wasn't it? What,
32 million.
Yeah. So a player that Ten Hag did want, but a player that has really surprised me. Really, the way that he's bringing players into play, whether it's Garnacho, Rashford, Ahmad, whoever it is that plays, we seem to, as an attacking force, be a bit more on it when Zirkzee's sort of pulling the strings.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think it's hard because I'm going to contradict myself here, but because if Bruno and Zirkzee start together, I don't feel like it works because Zirkzee's dropping into the space where Bruno normally plays it. And when Hojlund's up front, he stays up front, and we know what Zirkzee's like. He is that false 9.5 player, like he has described. And when he has been in front of goal and had that opportunity to score, he's not taken it. Hence why he's got 9 goals in Serie A last season. So United knew that they weren't going to get a goal scorer on their hands, and Rasmus Hojlund's the goal scorer in the team. So I don't know how Ten Hag's going to shape
That's what I was going to ask you.
Team.
Where does he implement him? Because we discussed the kind of number 10 role, which seems to be sewn up by Bruno. And this is why I wanted to bring this point in. If he had got the red card and the 3-match ban, there are a few fans that I've spoken to that are calling for possibly Zirkzee in the 10. You know, that could transform this team, especially now that you're looking at trying to get Rasmus Hojlund back in as the number 9, this player that's going to press, lead the line, and then just in behind, because there's no doubt this moment in time, Zirkzee in that area is bringing other players into play and being a lot more effective than what Bruno, Fernandes has been so far in 6 kind of Premier League games for United this season?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a funny one because I would have thought Bruno would have really loved playing with Zirkzee. As Dan mentioned there, they do occupy similar territories, which is probably affecting Bruno. But we've seen in previous seasons, especially in the first couple of seasons, Bruno's got an eye for goal. So I'm really surprised he's not running past him. I thought Bruno would have been pinging into him, running off him, and almost like making that third run off him and becoming the striker. And I'm a bit disappointed in Bruno in that sense. I know Eriksen hasn't necessarily got that in his locker. And I know Mason Mount's not available, but I actually think Mason Mount is the one that complements Zirkzee the most. And
injured again?
Yeah, of course. What a surprise. I mean, it's a bit of a non-conversation because he's not available for selection, but the point I'm trying to make is that a lot of our players need to understand his game more. He's very much a facilitator, and he's got the capabilities of bringing the best out of the people around him. And our players aren't really utilising that as much. I feel like Rashford started to utilise it prior to that Spurs game where you started to see him, he was pinging the ball into him, he was running off him a bit. You saw a couple of combination plays that we hadn't seen for a while, to be honest, in a United shirt from like the striker and the winger. So it was really refreshing to see that. So I want to see more of that, basically. So I think in terms of Zirkzee's role in the team, it's essentially been a Bobby Firmino. Of course, he's not at that standard. We know that Firmino was sensational at what he did. And I think that Zirkzee definitely is within that ilk in terms of that mould of a player. So we just need to utilise him more, play the ball into him, run off him, get a bit closer to him. I do think the spaces between Zirkzee and a lot of our players are far too big, and we don't really play as a unit. I mean, if you watch other teams, they're playing close proximity and there's a bit more fluidity in the attack. And I feel like our attack is extremely predictable and extremely rigid, and it seems a bit robotic. So I would love to see like Bruno ping the ball off him and just run off him, like because he sort of has that gravity, he attracts players to him, and Bruno with space is dangerous, so I would like to see that more from Bruno Fernandes.
Make sure you continue to get your comments into the chat. Let us know who you would select. Where are you at with this manager at this moment in time? If United, worst come to it, did lose this game this evening, is that the end for Erik Ten Hag, or have you simply checked out already? We've got some more super chats. Make sure you get them in. Obviously, I will read them out, do my best to get through them all. That guy 92 says, "I'm so annoyed at all these toxic rumours around and speculation at the club. I just want our club to play like they give a damn." To be United in capital letters. I think that's what any fan wants to see, don't we? Again, it's hard to forget about Sunday, but a horrendous day at the office. But it does seem to be a lot of them at this moment in time, which does not make it easy. At this moment in time, we can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's very, very dark. But hopefully one day we will see that. But Thomas says Ten Hag getting himself sacked. No one else. Again, we can talk about decisions that he's made. Just recently, there's been instances, hasn't there, where I think once the Old Trafford faithful start to question certain substitutions, and you're at that phase before. And how many managers have we seen, recently? We know how this goes. You'd like to think that he could ride this storm, but at the same time, you do feel that if he was to be sacked, then he hasn't really given him the best chance, really, of survival. Dan, what I would say is on Rasmus Hojlund, last season, Erik ten Hag was... I was one of them banging the drum. Injuries were shocking defensively. All the different combinations that he had to use at the back. Kept saying, let him get his back line in. He does have that now in place, and not much seems to have changed. But in terms of Rasmus Hojlund, this is probably the last kind of excuse that you can use at this moment in time, is that, all right,
and Zirkzee's had a lot of opportunities this season to put the ball in the back of the net, but for whatever reason, he's just not managed to take it.
Do you think that's the area that Hojlund would have been kind of...
I wouldn't have said all the opportunities that Zirkzee's had, Hojlund would score, but I would say that he would have at least hit the target more often than not. But yeah, he just adds another different element to the game. And if for Ten Hag to maybe say, if he does come out and say that I've not got a traditional number 9, I'd find... Obviously he hasn't, but if he does come out and say that, I'd find that very weird, because at Ajax he played a false 9, so... What's the difference at Manchester United if that's his style of play?
Does seem obsessed with number 10s, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Ten Hag.
Yeah, and dropping in.
Do you think that's a reason, Usmaan, that we get left that we get left so open in this midfield? We had visions of last week.
Yeah.
Defenders sprinting up.
It's not ideal, is it?
From the back.
Just to come back into the Hojlund chart, I think first things first. I just want to acknowledge one thing. Obviously, Zirkzee has had a lot of chances. I don't think it's as clear as to say, Hojlund scores them chances, because Hojlund doesn't get into the positions to get those chances a lot of the times. And I do think there is a question mark over his movement in the box. I know Zirkzee...
Oh, come on. No, I've seen instances where...
No.
Either Garnacho or Rashford has decided to take a shot on, and Hojlund is unmarked. The amount of times we've seen it back. Just pass me the ball and I'll tap it in.
No, I completely agree,
Bang.
but I do think there is a case for that as well, that it's not as... black and white as, if you swapped him over, that we would have had X amount of goals. I do think there is a case to make that Hojlund does need to improve his movement in the box. Hopefully with Van Nistelrooy there, one of the killers that, of Man United, hopefully that
You'd think so,
yeah, you'd think if Van Nistelrooy can't improve you in the box, then you're hopeless, essentially. So, yeah, for me, I'm hoping he listens to Van Nistelrooy, because obviously he was one of the greatest strikers we've ever seen in the Premier League, unbelievable player. So, yeah, for me, from that perspective, it would be interesting to see how he does when he comes back. But all in all, we do need him. I mean, his best games came in Europe. He was absolutely fantastic in the Champions League. I think a lot of people forget how good he actually was, and the few of the goals that he scored. I believe there was a stat, and he hadn't got an assist for one of his players for like 4 or 5 of his goals. He was literally just manufacturing his own goals for quite a period
Head down,
of time.
halfway line, bang.
That goal was the one that I remember, that chip. So
happen.
he definitely has that composure that Zirkzee most definitely lacks at the moment. So yeah, I think it's a massive loss from that perspective. But on the flip side, we need to see an improvement from his overall game as well. And hopefully we see that when he comes on, or if he's starting.
NDVI, hope that doesn't mean anything really bad, and people are going to be laughing at me. It sounded about right, didn't it? It didn't sound like anything.
I'm not going to jump on that bandwagon just in case.
I've been caught out once on this show, you see, so I have to be very, very cautious now as to what I read out. But it says must-win game for United, all or nothing tonight. Bit of an overreaction, all or nothing, is it?
I wouldn't say all or nothing, I think.
I was going to say, would it be
United,
the end of the world?
After this game, whatever happens, they've still got 6 games to play in the Europa League.
Still a league format, yeah.
Exactly, so 6 more games. Villa to come on Sunday. Yeah, let's not rush into it too much.
Thank you very much for the super chat. Continue to get them in as we build up to FC Porto v Manchester United in the Europa League. Still can't get my head around saying that, Europa League.
Yeah.
What I was going to say, Usmaan, you just touched on Ruud van Nistelrooy then, and the kind of work that he will be doing behind the scenes. Obviously, we've had talk this week that he's the man to take over, which, again, you put 2 and 2 together, and maybe it might happen one day. But I was thinking back to a moment in the Community Shield when Rashford missed them 2 chances, especially the one in the second half, and it just cut to the bench, and you almost had Ruud van Nistelrooy just looking, thinking, oh, I might have bitten off more than I can chew here. I'm going to have my work cut out, because if these players can't learn from Van Nistelrooy and that kind of lethal... He was just lethal he's up there as one of the best strikers I've ever seen at Man United.
Yeah,
you talk about Rooney. Some people might say he was a 10. He wasn't. Van Nistelrooy. You talk to a lot of Manchester United fans about trying to get him into an all 11.
Yeah.
A lot of fans that witnessed him would have him in an all. I know best ever all-time United team.
No,
for that reason.
I mean, he was the definition of fox in the box. I mean, that goal against Fulham that he scores when he picks the ball up and runs the full length of the pitch was almost a shock because we never saw him out of the box. Obviously, it's such an iconic goal, but in general, as I've already mentioned, I think for me, if you can't learn from one of the best to ever do it, you're never going to be, good enough for Manchester United. I think, we saw Ronaldo as well, actually. I know it's somewhat off topic, but Ronaldo said in one of the interviews that a lot of the younger players or the players that aren't really there to learn. He obviously alluded to the fact that Delo was one of the people that is eagerly wanting to learn, and I really hope that's not the case anymore. I mean, for me, if you should be wanting to pick his brain constantly, like you mentioned with the Rashford chances. Rashford for me is very hot and cold with finishing. I think in terms of his ball striking, he's absolutely phenomenal.
He's a confidence player, isn't he? Once he goes on a run.
But the issue with him is he's not. He sometimes lacks that composure. I mean, sometimes you just need to pass it to the net and he'll try to knuckleball it for whatever reason. And I think, for me, Rashford is one of the players that he has a lot of ability, but for whatever reason, doesn't show it frequently enough. On the flip side, Alejandro Garnacho, a very young talent. We've seen a lot of positive things from him. I think he's definitely someone that will massively benefit from Ruud van Nistelrooy. I think in terms of his composure again, I think Garnacho does snatch a lot at his chances, as does Zirkzee at the moment. So I think they're all gonna 100% obviously learn a lot from him. But it's just how badly do they want it? Because if they want it, then you're only gonna get nuggets every single day from him. This guy is absolutely one of one essentially in terms of finishing.
One player, Dan, that none of us have included in when we talk as an attacking force, Antony. He is becoming a kind of forgotten man at Manchester United now. A hell of a lot of money invested into him. Ten Hag, at some stages last season, played him. I remember being sat here when the team come out thinking, wow, he's showing a lot of faith in this player now. I mean, from your point of view, is this just, has Ten Hag kind of lost the faith, or at the same time, none of us have included him, so can you actually see?
Trying to make a case for Antony. Yeah. I'm not trying to make it a case for Antony, by the way.
Can you see a Ten Hag curveball this evening where he actually goes, go out there and express yourself?
Definitely
or would you not trust him?
I think it has to be Ahmad, yeah, it has to be Ahmad on that right side. I think I saw the spell against Chelsea, which is the game that we ended up losing, of course. Antony did look very good in that game. You think about the outside of the foot pass, which was a great cross as well. That was quite a good game from Antony. And then you think about the Liverpool game coming on in the FA Cup. But it's all been moments, hasn't it? There's been no consistent performances. So does he even make it as a squad player? It's hard to say, isn't it? And
in terms, Usmaan, of a team that you've kind of picked there, when you're looking at your squad and looking at the bench, what kind of players can make an impact? We know that Garnacho, especially off the bench this season, has certainly he's been a lot more effective coming off the bench, hasn't he? Absolutely. He's come on, affected games a lot better than when he started. And I do remember his kind of breakthrough season at United. He was held back. I think there was a big call for him, just set him free, and then people get giddy, give him the 7 shirt, before Mason Mount cut, and you're like, just calm it, let's see what happens here. Do you think Garnacho is more effective at this moment in time? I might just be stating the obvious here, but obviously for your opinion, and let me know in the comment section as well, is Garnacho better as an impact player off the bench or starting a game like this evening?
Yeah, I mean, I've gone on record, even on the United Stand Fan Forum, to say that I think he's a squad player. And that didn't really go down well with a lot of people in the chat.
Nothing ever does with them lot.
Which is an understatement. Look, for me, it's not criticism of Garnacho. He's a young lad. He's still learning his trade. He's got a lot of mistakes in his game, as of a lot of our attackers. I think for me, it's actually better suited for him, like for his understanding of the game, his learning, his development, that we do somewhat take him at the firing line, not completely, of course, but we need to look after him. I mean, I think a lot of United fans would probably agree there's a lot of potential there, but we need to nurture him in the right way. I do think with Garnacho, he does seem to have a bit of a, I don't want to say chip on his shoulder, but he does have that bit of that. I don't know if he's trying to copy Ronaldo a bit too much, basically, what I'm trying to get at. I feel like there's shades of, like, attitude-wise, he's trying. I don't know if he's just, like, taking every leaf out of Ronaldo's book, even the bad things. Yeah, look, there's nothing wrong with arrogance, don't get me wrong, but I think he needs to tone it down a bit and he needs to just be a student of the game a bit. So, for me, as you mentioned there, he was absolutely phenomenal in that season off the bench, extremely impactful, and I actually... Again, that might sound a bit of an unpopular opinion, but I actually think his best appearances have been off the bench this season as well. I just think against tired legs, he's an absolute havoc for any defender. And as Dan rightly said, they play a high line, so...
I agree with that as well. And before...
Dying embers of the game.
Don't want people watching now thinking, oh, God, listen to this lot. They're, hounding Garnacho's the next scapegoat. It's nothing to do with that. This is a discussion about, the impact that Garnacho's had, which I thoroughly agree that off the bench...
He's young, though. He's like... We don't need to necessarily...
Build him up too much, yeah.
He doesn't need to play... Don't get me wrong, the odd game he can start, of course, but... There's nothing wrong with him coming off the bench for Rashford. Like, it's not the end of the world.
It is, isn't it? He's got the earrings, he's had his Newton Heath done, he's dyed the hair and all that. He looks like a footballer. It's fair enough, steady on. There's nothing wrong with reining that in, is there? In terms of Garnacho, do you agree on that, or do you disagree that he's probably his best appearances? He looks better when he's coming off the bench.
It's hard to say, isn't it? Really, I think. When it's not big...
Because at the same time, we just all agreed that we would start this evening. You didn't?
No.
Of course you didn't. That's why you made that point.
I'm consistent.
Yeah, I do think that Garnacho last season, he did have a lot of pressure on himself. I think he put it on himself as well, and I think a lot of the fans always thought, Garnacho's going to start, of course, this game, whether that was on the right or the left. And he did score big goals for United last season, don't get me wrong, and did well. But... like what you said, Usmaan, I think that he needs to start learning his trade a little bit too much, not go down his own path, and do take advice from Ruud van Nistelrooy and do become more of a squad player, which I think he is doing a little bit more this season. Because like I went to the Hojlund situation before about service into the box, Garnacho's been looking to cross the ball into the box more times this season, I think, than last season. I'll have to look at the stats in that, of course. But yeah, Garnacho just needs to not put as much pressure on himself, and I think he will shine. And I think some players are suffering from burnout. I know Beth said about Bruno, and I do think that is a case for Bruno and some of the players too. But yeah, Garnacho, I think, just give him a bit of time and then we'll see what he does.
A few more super chats to get through. DV says, super nervous, guys, just want us to win. I think you speak for every Manchester United fan out there in the land. And Spooky Grim, a member for 41 months, says, hoping for a good result. These players need a huge wake-up call. The only way now is up. Can't possibly get lower. You can't get any lower, can we? Well, I suppose you could. Let's not talk about that. And they threw in a come on United at the end. In terms, Usmaan, of a Europa League campaign, does Eric Ten Hag throw his eggs all in one basket, a la Mourinho at Manchester United? But it's so early on in a Premier League season. We want to be competitive in the Premier League as well, but the Europa League, I said this on the countdown to kick-off last week, you've got that carrot that's dangled, the fact that if you do actually win this trophy, you're in the Champions League. So it's kind of a win-win situation if you win it. So the only other question is, if, let's say we finish 13th in the league, which would be a great question in itself, it would be like, if you could win the Europa League, or, you win the Europa League, but you finish where you are now in this position, 13th, or top 4?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'll ever take top 4 of the Europa League. I think that's very, Arsenal and Spurs-esque. I mean, we like to win trophies at Man United. In terms of the competition itself, look, any Man United team that's in the Europa League should most definitely be the favourites, or at least in the conversation. Of course, the other teams in there, there's obviously like Tottenham in particular, but Yeah, I think with the new format, the fact that the Champions League teams don't drop down, it most definitely bodes well for us. I wouldn't want to see us up against Champions League teams with the manner which we're playing at the moment. But yeah, to come back to your point regarding should he put all his eggs in this basket, I think it's too early to say that. I think it'd be ridiculous for him to do that at this point in time. Again, I don't personally think we'll beat Aston Villa, but nonetheless, it's still a long time. 31 games to rectify the wrongs of how we've started thus far. So I think it would just be ridiculous for him to just scrap the season. I don't think he'll do that anyways, but yeah, I just think it's too early. I do think there's a capability to turn our fortunes around, and not what's to say that other teams don't go through a rough period. I mean, Tottenham notoriously bottle it. I know they just slapped us. I can't talk too much.
I tell you what, I have got for you, Usmaan. Sorry to interrupt you again. Team is here now. The speculation is over. We've sat here. We've said who we would have played. Obviously, in the comment section, you've said who you wanted to see in that starting 11. I can tell you that in net, Andre Onana starts. You've then got a back four of Mazraoui, De Ligt, Martinez and Dalot, so that is totally unchanged. Into the midfield area, it does get interesting. Casemiro, who you agreed on, Eriksen and Bruno Fernandes. You've got a front three. We already knew that Ahmad was starting. Marcus Rashford starts, of course he does. And here's the surprise, Rasmus Hojlund.
Wow.
Wow, as Borat would say. I'll give you the subs bench as well. You've got Heaton, Johnny Evans, Maguire, Lindelof, Collier, Ugarte, Gore, Anthony, Garnacho and Zirkzee. So when we were talking in terms of a bench, which was my question before, but we were obviously playing a guessing game to see who would be we could bring in if things weren't going wrong or from a different perspective. But I'll go to you, Dan, on this one. Initial thoughts on the starting 11. Are you happy with it? Is there any kind of anything that jumps out and surprises you?
Obviously the Hojlund one, but the team that I sort of chose is sort of that team, bar Rashford over Garnacho, of course.
There he is, blowing his own trumpet.
I mean, he was pretty spot on.
I'm just saying, I picked that team, you know.
So that means if we lose, it's on you then?
No.
So you're right, it is.
No.
We'll say, what was all that about?
Yeah,
I don't want to get any complaints from you in the post match if we lose.
My tactical talk could be absolutely rubbish. I think, obviously, Mainoo's not in the team as well, not in the squad whatsoever, so that's a big loss as well if you think about him coming off the bench, adding something different. But like we said, the big one is Hojlund having him up front, no Zirkzee. Like I said, if Service gets into the box for Hojlund, I think he could take it, but there has been that rustiness that you've seen, especially you think about the Crystal Palace game when he came on, he had that big touch.
But that's off the bench. He's actually starting this evening, so he's not struggling trying to get into a game. He's going to gradually grow into it, so that could make a huge difference.
So yeah, they've obviously seen something in training which has made him pick over Zirkzee. Like I said about Zirkzee, when he's been in front of goal, he's just not managed to take his chances. So whether they're thinking put Hojlund, the goal scorer, in there, in the box, so he can score or have more opportunities on goal, I don't know, but it makes sense to make that change, even though, I don't know, you could argue Zirkzee with the high press, but yeah. Whatever, if it is Hojlund or Zirkzee, there's positives and negatives. So
the chat is absolutely popping off. It always happens here on match day when the team news come in. You know that there'll be some people happy, like Dan himself. You know that's the team that he would have picked it. Let me just see. It's gone off for one moment. Here we are. Let me go back to that. And Inbred, yeah, that's what they're called. Great YouTube name, says, it's over, no matter how many wins he gets. I want him to stay. But if you can't see his time is already up, you're just in denial. Love to all. What a great super chat. Thank you very much for that. Them inbred people, eh? Noah says, Erik Ten Hag is sacking himself. What is this midfield? Bruno, who plays way too far forward, and two other players who don't have any legs. Awful. Listen, you will never please anyone, but I think there's definitely a game plan in mind here. You have to look at the midfield that he has chosen. And Daruva, I'm not reading that end bit because I think that will lead me into saying something daft. Says Dalot, mistakes affecting team mentality during the game. Make sure to get in your comments. Do you agree with this team? Do you disagree with the team? Where do you stand at this moment in time? Come on, let's get behind United in Porto. That's all we can do at this minute. But Usmaan, I'll come to you. Dan has highlighted the fact that Rasmus Hojlund starts this evening. I think that's certainly the name that jumps out. Is there any others in there that you did say Casemiro?
Yeah.
You did say Eriksen. You were sat in the Godfather's seat there. You were preaching like the Godfather himself.
To be honest, I'm not surprised that Bruno starts. I think, you know, it makes sense for him to play this game from a perspective of the manager.
I don't think he was born far from. Listen,
exactly.
there shouldn't be a token gesture where you go.
No.
He only grew up 10 minutes away from the stadium. Let's give him a start.
We were saying before the game, and he might have a chip on his shoulder. He just got a red card. He wants to rectify his wrongs. You know, he is someone that understands the fans. You know, from the way he speaks, he does actually genuinely have love for the fans. So I like to think he wants to like redeem himself for the fans as a like an apology sort of thing. So I'm hoping he steps up today because he really needs to. In terms of the Hojlund thing, I've got to be honest. I think with Hojlund starting, I'm a bit more confident we actually win this game. I feel like we will get chances this game.
Well, after what you were saying before?
Yeah, no, I just think he has that ability to put the ball in the net, which is something that at this moment in time we're massively lacking. It just depends.
Did I read that super chat before? United one said agreed. Yeah. Rasmus IQ and movement very questionable.
Yeah, no, that is, like I said earlier, that is my only question mark over him. And I mean, we kind of spoke about the players not crossing the ball into the box. It kind of works in tandem. Obviously, the balls have to have quality, but his movement also has to be top draw as well to get that sort of extra yard of space, which Zirkzee has done. So again, we'll find out today if it is a Zirkzee thing or if it's just the quality is being better from wide areas. But yeah, in terms of Hojlund, if he gets half the chances Zirkzee has been getting, he'll definitely score at least a brace, I would imagine, because he's definitely better than Zirkzee finishing, in my personal opinion. And I don't think Porto, with the high line, are going to be expecting, obviously, Bruno Eriksen to be playing with the quality that they have as well. So
I'm looking forward to seeing Hojlund, because if there's one thing that Zirkzee did say, and he was quite open about this when he joined Manchester United, was the fact that don't expect me to be prolific. But I don't think that's ever been his game anyway, has it? He's not somebody that's going to... Maybe in time, maybe he will. But, from what I've seen link-up wise, he definitely brings others into play. I can't see him being prolific, 20 goals a season.
No.
It's not happening, is it?
No, exactly.
And he wasn't bought for that reason as well.
No, yeah. Like I said before, I think it was 9 or 13 goals in Serie A last season. He's not been brought in to be a goal scorer. If you want to see a goal scorer, look at Porto's striker, Samu Omaridian. He scored 5 and 5. So there's a goal scorer on your hands. So Deleta Martinez will have a handful tonight with him.
In terms of the sub bench, where's my team gone now? Very professional here. I was going to say, who do we have on the bench? I was going to say, and by God, I hope we're not in this position where we're trying to dig deep and looking at, a game changer from the bench. I'm sure that Ricky would say that he'd be bringing Johnny Evans on at some stage to shore up the back. But as an attacking kind of force, I mean, you have got Ugarte on the bench. Again, it depends how this game is going, doesn't it, Usmaan? If you try to see out a lead, you've got players that you can bring into this team. Vice versa. I mean, if it's not going right, you do have Anthony, Garnacho and Zirkzee on the bench.
Yeah, I mean, Garnacho, like we've already
obviously
mentioned,
we don't want to be in that position where we're...
I mean, we've got to obviously, prepare for all eventualities. So, yeah, in terms of Garnacho, we already mentioned he's brilliant off the bench. I have no qualms in him against tight legs, against the high leg, to really cause a lot of issues to the Porto backline. One thing I will say, Porto haven't really conceded many goals of late, so it will be interesting to see how we fare and obviously breaking them down as well. But yeah, in terms of Zirkzee off the bench, we haven't really seen him off the bench yet, so again, it will be interesting to see what he would bring. In terms of Anthony, I personally just don't think we're going to see much from him, if I'm honest. I mean,
it's crazy to think though, isn't it? The money that they invested in. I know that's not on Ten Hag at this time, but whoever allowed that to actually go through it's absolutely mind-boggling to think you've got a player now sat on the bench that cannot get into. Was it even the Barnsley game in the Carabao Cup? In games like this, where you're looking at...
Did he come on that game?
I think he started. I think he scored a penalty. Yeah, I think he
he did, didn't he? Yeah. That shows you what I know. Yeah.
But I was about to say, he scored finally.
Like you said about bringing Anthony in, that was Ten Hag's decision to bring Anthony in, and it took the process from him being looked at by United. He was a £30 million player then. and then to wait whole of the summer, and then it gets to the Brentford game where it was 4-0 and United lost. Ten Hag obviously has worked with Anthony at Ajax and says, I need Anthony in my team. So Ajax know that United are vulnerable, hence why 90 million was put on the price tag.
Considering what United had paid in past deals for Martinez, which a lot of people said at the time we kind of overpaid for him as well.
I was just going to say also about the substitutions, just whilst we're on the topic. This is something that I said on the last fan forum, is I'm actually really tired of Erik ten Hag making the exact same substitutions.
Bang on.
Look, again...
I can defend certain things, but you can almost set... But that I can't, because you can almost set your clock by it. It's so predictable. And if us as fans can see it, even the opposition team, they'll probably be like, oh, on the 60th minute, he's going to bring off such and such person for that. Like, and they're always straight swaps. It's never...
It doesn't make any sense. I mean, none of the substitutions are situational to the way the game is panning out. It's very much, like you said, he's essentially written the substitutions prior to the game. And for me, as a manager, I'd want my manager to base every substitution on the situation your team is in that game, rather than having, we can play substitute bingo. Ahmad will come off and Garnacho will come on. Bruno won't come off regardless of how he performs. Hojlund will come off and Zirkzee will come on, even if Hojlund's dropping a 9 out of 10 and Bruno's dropping 6. He won't play them together. So little things like that. I just want him to be a bit more brave with the substitution, even if he throws an Anthony on, which I personally wouldn't do. But at least I'd applaud the fact that he's trying something new and he's going away from what he's basically doing every single game. So I want to see him be a bit more ruthless. I don't want him to sub Eriksen off if he's playing better than Bruno. I want him to take Bruno off, which is not going to happen, of course. But
he needs to get away from this kind of favourites tag.
And that's
Solskjaer had this.
Yeah, and that's where
people seeing through it then, like you say. It's
at the end of the day, you're a Manchester United manager. You've got to make the big calls. If you can't substitute Bruno off if he's dropping a poor game, again, I'm just saying, hypothetically, what's the point? What's the point of Eriksen even being a player? He's literally, regardless of what he does, he comes off. So for me, it's little things like that. I mean, you mentioned Ugarte there. If it's a case that we need Ugarte to shore up things or see the game out, and Eriksen's dropping an 8 out of 10, he's playing really well, and Bruno's not having a good game, we know Bruno's going to stay on, and that's the wrong decision, and that impacts the game and the overall result. So for me, I'm going to be looking at that massively. Substitutions aside, that is the biggest thing for me. Make the substitutes on merit rather than the players' names.
Sorry, I'll just get through this super chat very quickly, mate. Rajan says, in my opinion, if Ten Hag wins the next 2 games, he should stay in the job, because I can't see any other coach doing any better with the squad we have got at the moment. Bit of a wild call out. So you're suggesting probably if he doesn't win these next 2 games, I can't see it being based on 2 games anyway. But Dan... sorry, what were you going to say before I rudely interrupted you?
No, it's all right. Like I said before about Ten Hag, rumour mill started. I don't think he'll get sacked, but that's the end of that.
Is that in the no information or?
No, not in the no. You just it's too much of a gamble. It's too much of a gamble. Going back to the substitutions, though, another key factor I think is the timing of the substitutions. You think about Ten Hag. Everyone normally thinks, and you said it, Kev, when it comes to 60 minutes. That's when you look at your team, or you already know by then, and you make the changes. Erik ten Hag's making these substitutions with 15 to 10 minutes to go, and these players aren't having enough impact on the game. Because they're not having enough time on the pitch. So that's sort of another factor that Ten Hag's got to consider, I think, as well.
He's not very proactive, is he? And at the same time, he does not react to situations. It's clear from anyone, if you sat in the stands on Sunday and you see Van der Ven, running literally from his own box straight through the middle, you're looking at that and thinking, that cannot happen again. It has happened so many times. I think, is it Ten Hag's been beaten by... Is it 3 or more goals on something
25 times,
a certain amount of occasions, which, as a United manager, fair enough. You have some bad days at the office where you go, wow. And Sunday could have been. If we started the season well and it was simply a blip where you went, brilliant. We had 11 players out on that pitch and not one of them turned up. But you could say, right, well, then we'll bounce back. And we'd seen little bits creeping into United's game where you were like, little patterns of play. But ultimately, the book does stop with the manager. I will always say that. Yes, the players have their part to play as well. And you can see through that. How many times have we had been in this situation where we're not forced to make an opinion, but you gauge your own opinion because you think the players aren't either playing for him or it's the manager.
Yeah, I mean, that is spot on in terms of like the play. What I will say, I don't agree with the notion. I'm not saying you said it, but just there's a notion going around at the moment that the players aren't playing for him, that they're down tools.
Well, we're down to this leaks. We're back to the leaks from the dressing room. This that.
I don't personally agree with that. I do think they are playing for him, especially when we went down to 10 men against Tottenham. They had to dig in deep that game. I know we ended up losing it 3-0, but I actually thought we did all right with 10 men. I don't know, that's not right. That's not like, let's pat ourselves on the back or anything. But, we could have completely capitulated like we've done in the past and like got a hit for 6-7. It was 3 in the end, but I don't think on the base of the second half it was warranted a 3. On the base of the first half it could have been 6. But for me, I think, his in-game management...
You can take getting beaten.
Yeah.
As it's the manner of the defeat.
Absolutely,
you come away from the Liverpool game and the Tottenham game and you think... You shower, and you're revved up and you're thinking, I can't believe what I've just... And if you go along and it's simply not your day, it's you're simply beaten by the better team on the day, you don't mind that. When you see a lack of effort, and basically players looking around like they'd never played football before. Like that team had just been assembled that day, just picked up on the street, thrown in a park and gone, right, lads, there you go. Just basically try and kick the ball in that net and just... It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, we were 6s or 7s. I was going to say, one thing I will say, his in-game management, of course, hasn't been up to the standards. In his first season, actually, a lot of times there were moments where we were crediting his substitution. So it's interesting to see what's happened within that period. But just the last thing on this topic for me is his Eriksen substitution in the second half essentially summed his in-game management up. We're down to 10 men. Eriksen, everyone in the dog knows Eriksen has not got legs on the best of days. We've already got 10 legs against a stretched...
We're getting overrun
Tottenham team, and he subs on Eriksen. And when he subbed on Eriksen, I screamed out loud saying, what are you doing? So please, just don't do that today. I just get through this game unscathed, please.
We've had it with Garnacho, haven't we, where everybody in the crowd's thinking it has to be Rashford coming off. And then he brought him off. Yeah, and the booing is basically, it's fans just trying to get the message across that you have made the wrong decision. It's not booing the team or whatever. It's kind of trying to say, you've got this one wrong. Why can't you see it? It's the reason... Go on,
I was
Dan.
just going to say, it was very interesting to see this past week what Benny McCarthy had to say. His quote was on Ten Hag. He said that he's very much like a really good tactician, and he's in the tactical game he's very good. But addressing key issues to the players, he's not so much good at. Now, I think one of his assistants, whether that's Rennie Hackett or Ruvan Nistelrooy, has to come in and be that person who tells the players, look, you're not doing something right here. You need to change. Or not the hairdryer treatment, let's just say, because that's not really going to happen. But you can see that on the touchline with Ten Hag as well. Even when United concede, he's not pointing fingers, he's not shouting at any players, like you see Pep Guardiola do, like you see Jurgen Klopp do, or did back in the past. Yeah. So there's just that character that's needed on the sideline. It's sort of non-existent sometimes when Ten Hag's there. It's very much hands in coat pockets and then turn around, look at the iPad and see what the key issues are. And it doesn't get addressed to the players until half-time, which is a little bit worrying.
Do you think, Usmaan, it's a great topic that actually to bring up on Benny McCarthy. Is this somebody that's clearly got an axe to grind, somebody who's quite bitter that he's no longer working at Manchester United? Or do you look at it and think, actually, this is somebody who worked in behind the scenes, knows what's going on? Or is it just his opinion? Does he have an axe to grind?
Yeah, I'm not going to say I've seen all the quotes, but from the ones I have seen, he didn't really...
Well, just on, let's say, on Ronaldo, for instance, he says that I think Manchester United wasted a great opportunity to use Cristiano in the right way. But I'm not the head coach and I could not be the one to make those decisions. So he's basically saying...
Okay, so I've not listened to the ones. So yeah, they've retract that statement. So I was going to say the ones I've listened to, he doesn't seem like he's come across like a tone that he's bitter, but that one he definitely does. It's hard to really say. I think some of the things that I've heard him say, I agree with, in terms of like, you know, the comments about the players, the manner in which they apply themselves in training. And he mentioned Bruno Fernandes and Dalot in particular being, you know, model professionals essentially. And I do agree with that. Ronaldo's also said that maybe they're his compatriots and he's somewhat sticking up for them. But I do feel like there's truth there. So some of the things he said, I do wholeheartedly believe, and he just said it as a general comment, but the one you just read out.
But he's actually pinpointing. He says Eric had his philosophy, his ideas, and he didn't see Cristiano being part of them, and that's when problems started.
Okay,
so he's pinpointing that as the moment.
That was extremely, well, he's essentially exposing Ten Hag and obviously where he feels like the...
But at the same time, it's getting on Ronaldo's side, saying, you know, this kind of Team Ronaldo kind of thing.
It makes sense, but from his perspective. But yeah, no, quite clearly he's saying, you know, he's pointing out where he feels like the things have gone south, so to speak. You know, for me, I respect Benny McCarthy and what he's done, but at the end of the day, you know, Ten Hag had to make that decision, although higher ups had to make that decision. And they made the decision what they felt like was best for the manager, and you've got to respect that. He's entitled to say what he wants. I just don't understand why he's done it, personally. I mean, especially those comments anyways, it just seems a bit, it does seem a bit bitter, I can't lie.
I'm having a quick read through it myself, because he's obviously gone into, he says the coach is with them and willing to fight alongside them. Tactically, I feel that Eric is at the top. He lacks a bit of that fire, that passion. That's where we differ, him and I.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah, it's interesting actually, because I hadn't read through it. I'd heard a few little snippets, and from my point of view, I'm thinking this is somebody who used to work at Manchester United, no longer does. You know, how often do we see this where people leave establishments and then start kind of slagging it off? But
yeah, it's his opinion. It's a bit of insight into the dressing room, which we'd not really seen as much under Ten Hag. Obviously, the Ronaldo situation, Sancho, but actually being in the dressing room whilst those talks are happening to the players, it's just very interesting to see from his angle what he thought of it. Whether it's wrong, whether it's right, it's just interesting, I think.
I'll also just say it doesn't really bode well for Eric Ten Hag, with that comment in particular. It kind of gives me the vibe that he doesn't really have the ability to motivate the players. Again,
which would be a huge worry in itself.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at what's happening on the pitch and those comments, they kind of go hand in hand. I mean, he's not really getting his message
When did
across.
These comments, when did they come?
This was just in the past week.
Yeah, it was
after the Tottenham game.
Yeah, because he got.
So it would fit in nicely with the fact that every single one of them players looked like they never, like I say, played for Ten Hag before.
It doesn't look great.
The message certainly wasn't getting across.
Yeah,
so.
I don't know what the message would be.
I think the interview was by a Portuguese news outlet, hence why we're playing Porto. So it would have been like in the preview package, I presume.
Right.
So.
We do have some more super chats coming in. Make sure you get them in before we cross over to Mark Goldbridge and his live watch along of FC Porto against Manchester United. Gregen, sorry if I got that wrong, says, I think Rashford has to play because of Glazers. Rashford has sacked all the managers so far. Rangnick was the only one with balls. That does come down to the fact that, I think Usmaan just said before, and Dan as well, about Eric Ten Hag making, well, basically growing a massive set of balls and making big calls. That's what he needs to do now. Definitely. He needs to do that ultimately to save himself. Us as fans want him to do it to save Manchester United, the club. But that's why after Sunday I was like, he's just sacked himself. And that's what you feel like, he's not giving himself the best kind of chance of getting results at this moment in time. But the thing that gets me is how do we win the FA Cup final? I know they're going to, it's not totally off topic here. It just, one day, all them players managed to turn up. Yeah, you've got the motivation on a personal level. They're probably thinking of what, they followed set tactics that day. There was a game plan from the first minute to the 90 whatever minute. It was played out in stages like we've done a lot of times under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer against Manchester City, where it was managed in 5-10 minute spells of the game, where it was, right, let's sit back, right, let's have a go, like a heavyweight boxing kind of match. Whereas in theory now, Man United are like the Anthony Joshua of the football world. We just lay on the canvas like everyone's coming in and pummeling us, and we're still carrying on. We're the biggest team in the world and all that, but please give us another crack at the title.
I think it's hard to say, isn't it? Because you think Ten Hag's had his style of play. He said before Ineos came in that United are a counter-attacking team. Then he can't play possession football with these players that he had a year or two ago. Now he's got the structure behind him. Now he's got the players who he wanted to bring in and he's brought in now. And Jason Wilcox has also said, you've got to play the style of play we want to see. He's trying to do that now. And United in possession aren't looking comfortable. And ultimately, it's down to the head coach and manager.
And that's where it goes for me as well. I always said the honeymoon period, well and truly over. I always said give him this season, you know, we won't know whether he'll last till Christmas, you know, at this rate. If results continue to be really bad, we don't know where it's going to go, do we? Well, we do.
Yeah, we do.
But
yeah.
he doesn't have any excuses anymore. He has the playing staff. The majority of these players now that are out in the pitch are his players.
Absolutely.
And for whatever reason, if they're not carrying out instructions, clear instructions that he's giving him, what do? You can't get rid of all these players now and say, you know, I thought we were clearing out the so-called deadwood, you know, players that were, you know, in the dressing room, they were bad eggs or whatever they were.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a results business first and foremost. You know, today is a big day for him. I know you've kind of mentioned that I don't think his sort of United career would be based on these 2 games. However, I do feel that if today, hypothetically, if he were to lose his game, it would be a massive X on his sort of CV in the United.
It doesn't look great then, because I'm already thinking about, we've not even got this game out of the way.
Yeah, let's get this game out of the way.
And I'm looking and thinking Villa Park, you know, on Sunday.
Tough atmosphere, yeah. It's a tough atmosphere.
I'd be surprised if it would be Villa, I'll be honest. But again, we'll focus on that when we need to. But I think today is a must-win just for the morale of the team and the momentum going into that game, because that game does look, it doesn't look pretty.
I was just going to say, if a draw happens today between Porto and United, what do you think the media would try and...
I think it'd depend on the manner in which it happens.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're getting absolutely battered and we cling on to a draw, then I'll probably take it based on the situation. But yeah, I think it's very much depending on the manner. What if it's a boring 0-0 where we don't really, you know, we seem quite content from the off that we've just gone there for a point of... I think in isolation, you've got to take into consideration it's a way to Porto, as we mentioned right at the start of the show. They're notoriously a Champions League team. They are a good outfit. They're in good form in general. I know they didn't win their first game against Clint, but overall, if you look at Porto as a team, they are a good team. You know, any team away in Europe is never easy, regardless of who you are. So you got to put that into factor. Obviously, it's hard given the situation we find ourselves in with the pressure going into this game. But I think a point isn't a disaster by any stretch of the imagination.
Continue to get your super chats in. I've got a few more to read out. If you've got anything you want to ask the panel or you want to react to the team news, are you happy that certain individuals are in this team? Who did you think should have played? Should Garnacho have started? Are you happy to see Ahmad start? Someone, yes, that is the YouTube name, someone has said, no disrespect, but from the corporate experience, if you don't grasp change management, opinions on Erik ten Hag will be partially uniformed. Change under Ineos may take 3 to 5 years to yield real results. Let the hate start. Listen, it's a democracy. You put it in there. I've read it out. Thank you very much. My favourite person is in the chat. He says, we will win 9-0. Bet it. And then follows it up with, I love this game. Yes, it's Patrice Evra in the chat. Obviously not the real one, but it does say Patrice Evra. He knows what I'm on about. And Dynex 1995, welcome to the United Stand Members Club. Make sure you become a member. You can get your badge in, as they say in the Stone Island world. Not even got it on. So they say, get the badge in. Remember that from the Carabao Cup final ages ago. Suraj says, players need to put in efforts for themselves, not to prove someone wrong. Results can't be controlled. Efforts can. You can't coach that. I think one thing we can all agree in is this evening we need to see an incredible upturn in performance.
Yeah, the players do need to show up. Those mistakes that were made against Spurs and mistakes that have been made this start of the season, they need to start the game well. That's one thing that United sort of have lacked in big games as well. Well, I say that Southampton wasn't the greatest either. You think about that first half an hour.
Fortunate 35 minutes.
Yeah, so United really do need to start this game well, and if they don't, the downfall could be from them, from then even. But equally, you know, United can always pull something out of the bag, can't they? So this would be the game to do it.
It would be, Usmaan, would it? Do you know, I just keep thinking, I look at the games we've won, you know, again, I don't want to be, dead negative or anything, but worst case scenario, if we do lose this evening, I just feel like any decent team that we've come up against this season has beaten us. We struggled against Fulham, first game of the season. We've been beaten, well, you look at the wins then, we've beaten what? Southampton?
We lost to Brighton as well.
We lost to Brighton, we lost to Liverpool.
I think we've beaten Southampton, Barnsley and Fulham, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's it. And then I look and I think, well, we finished 8th last season, is this guy? And then I'm thinking Porto this evening, and that we're playing in the Europa League, but it's a big chance. I think it's a big chance for redemption, but at the same time, I certainly get it with a lot of fans on Sunday that probably checked out. And I have sat here, I've give Eric Ten Hag, chance after chance. The amount of abuse that people give me, give me your reasons, I give them reasons. You do have this kind of divide where people are just 100% out and that is it. There is no convincing these people, which is fair enough, but you don't want that divide in the kind of the fan base. But football, it's all about opinions, isn't it?
Yeah, I've always said it from the start. I feel like the match-going fans always seem to give the manager a bit more time than so much.
And United fans do, yeah. United fans in general, you think what we've been through recently.
And I go back to it when United got beat 4-0 by Crystal Palace. I was in the away end for that game, and you wouldn't think that United were being beaten 4-0 because of that. And Carragher, I know, said it after the game, the fans don't deserve this team. But those are the United fans that will give all that they can to the manager and give him time and what he needs. And I do feel like there is a sense of that still. You could see it after the Spurs game as well. Whether it wasn't so much defiant, I don't think, as it was against Crystal Palace, but there is still sort of faith there in the hardcore, I think.
There is, isn't there? Before I forget, actually, one thing we always do on Countdown to Kickoff, you two just totally ruined this segment earlier. Really, you need to have a long, hard look in the mirror later on. What you've done to me there. Two of them, we always do ones to watch. Do you know what? We could actually, unless people have been watching the stream from the start, they'll know exactly who you chose. There might be some people that have just come in late from work.
No spoilers.
Yeah. So no spoiler alerts at this point. If you just joined us, we're now going to do ones to watch. This is where we all pick a player, one player, basically the one to watch. Again, some people look at this sometimes and think that you have to be choosing like some up-and-coming player, like a Collier or somebody. It doesn't mean that. It could be somebody that's bang out of form that you want to see improve. It might be somebody that you just absolutely buzz off at this moment in time, which there's not that many. There really isn't. But we'll start with you, Usmaan. You're one to watch. Reveal it to the United Stand community.
Well, if you was here earlier, you'll know that it was Ahmad, but I have now changed it.
This is for all the people that have tuned in late.
So I'm gonna change it to Rasmus Hojlund.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think obviously we didn't have the lineup when
change of tactic. Wow.
It. I honestly think that he'll get a lot of joy in this game because, like I mentioned earlier, all of his good games really, or his best games, have been in Europe. A lot of his goals came in Europe as well, and I think it kind of suits him in terms of like the intensity. It's not as high as it is in the Premier League. Maybe gets a bit that extra.
First start of the season.
Yeah, exactly, that extra yard.
So it's interesting to see as the focal point now of this front three. We've tried the false nine. We tried, the Zirkzee. We've even had Bruno there. Yeah. Now we do have, in effect, a proper number 9.
So yeah, I'm gonna go Rasmus Hojlund for his quality in front of goal, and I think he's gonna bag a brace today.
Yeah, Dan. Don't be changing tactic now.
No.
You're sticking with the one.
Yeah.
Reveal to the. I feel like I'm doing that. What's that show? Reveal yourself where you come down the list.
Ladies,
that's the one. Yeah. Dan, reveal yourself. So you're one to watch.
I've gone for Amad Diallo. I think that I mentioned about the high press, and I keep banging on about it. I know, but I think that Amad Diallo is that player who can get through that. He's very good in the channel as well. You think about the service, like you said about Hojlund, he will be able to give him that service, drift in behind, he can drift inside as well. He's got so much to his game, and I feel like today's game is where Amad Diallo will shine.
I know he's into the last year of his contract, Ahmad. You look at certain situations, I think, player of the month scores against Brighton in that game. Then he's kind of rewarded with, banished to the subs bench, as they would say in the media, against Liverpool. Brings him on well, we're 3-0 down. Same thing happened on Sunday as well, didn't it? He doesn't seem to be doing much wrong. In your mind, I mean, this is your one to watch. Is Ten Hag, is he just trying to hold him back slightly? Because he would be contradicting himself. At the start of this season, I did the countdown to kick off United against Rangers in a pre-season friendly. He scored in that, and after it, Erik Ten Hag said, this will be Ahmad's season. There's no more holding him back. Yeah. Why do you see the inconsistency with starting him? Or would Ten Hag's argument be, it's a long season, we're playing in a lot of games? Because some of them games there, a lot of fans would have been saying, Ahmad starts for me. In fact, I've been here doing it, where we all agree Ahmad starts on the right, and he hasn't. Maybe it is a pressure thing. We spoke about Garnacho, and maybe Ten Hag's sort of looked at Garnacho and thought, I did put a bit too much pressure on him starting him in most games, so he doesn't want to recreate that with Ahmad. And the fact that other managers have been in before him, because he came under Ollie, didn't he? So whether he didn't want to take a gamble or a risk with him too, there's that risk element that they thought initially at first, just because of his height, they didn't know what they were getting. I think he made, one professional appearance for Atalanta, I think it was. So they didn't quite know what they were going to get with Ahmad. Now they know what they've got, and it's a massive talent on their hands. Like Ten Hag said, like you said there, against Rangers, it is his season to shine. And this would be the season. United need someone up front that can be fits sort the of age profile, what I mean? He's not a teenager. He's not in the lead up to this even, an Amas that we've all been going, well, he's a left back, stick him in at left back. Yeah. And Ten Hag's come out and said that physically he isn't up to it. And that's a good enough excuse for me. He is a young lad, and you look and you think, well, fair enough. He could have thrown him in at stages this season. What happens to his confidence then if he gets absolutely torn apart down that, playing at left back? Some players don't recover from that, do they?
No, exactly.
Some super chats. Thank you very much. We're warming up to FC Porto against Manchester United. Nad Weber says, old United sacks Erik Ten Hag. New United is patient. Glory, glory, Man United. KGF says, we could learn something from the mighty Ducks. Is that an ice hockey team or something, is it?
No, I've heard the reference, but I can't even tell you where it's from.
Adabai, easy for me to say, says, from Nigeria, I pray for the sacking of Erik Ten Hag tonight. In Jesus' precious name, and we pray, amen, 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 amen. Come on, man, don't be bringing this negativity to the United Stand community on match day. That was their first ever super chat. Apparently, we've got to celebrate that. I'm not sure what we do for that, but we have to bring some party poppers or something for next time. Leo says, this is Leo, watching you guys from Ethiopia. It's unbelievable, isn't it? When you get these people watching from all over the world. I believe we should stick with Erik Ten Hag. Bet we will win today. That's their first ever super chat. That's brilliant. That gets us going. That's the kind of thing we need as we move into this kind of territory of talking about predictions and stuff and how confident we are. We've covered a hell of a lot here. Breach says, guys, when can Harry Amas walk into the first team setup? The kid is great and performed well during pre-season. Give me your thoughts, please, because we need a proper left back. We did kind of just cover that, but we're staying on the topic of it.
I'd throw him in.
Would you?
Yeah, I know you just said your comments there, but I was really impressed with him.
My only thing was, I was going off what Erik Ten Hag did say, and that's his reasoning.
If that's his reasoning, that's fair enough. I'm not gonna, hold that against him, but at the same time, how they're gonna learn. They could have thrown him in against Barnsley at least, you know what I mean? Like, one of the sort of...
Do you think Dallow's been that bad at left back?
No, but it's not necessarily...
But he's not a left back.
Yeah, I just think Ahmad's probably, from what I've seen of him in pre-season, I think at least warranted a start against Barnsley. He ended up winning 7-0. Dallow didn't need to play that game. Plus, it would have been a good opportunity for them to get rested because they're not going to get a chance at any otherwise. So, yeah, look, at the end of the day, I don't expect him to throw him in a Premier League game. But if we get a favoured draw in the cup, which I believe we got off the back of that,
got Leicester, yeah.
Or maybe not that favoured if Vardy's running down that wing with young Viold. But yeah, I think he deserves at least an opportunity.
I've just read that one, sorry. Avi, welcome to the United Stand Members Club. And Champagne didn't actually say anything, just put a super chat in, which is Great. Message retracted. Somebody must have said something really, really bad. The moderator's working really hard. Like to see that. Helping Kev out. Kong the Viking says, these players can't keep getting away with getting managers sacked. I'm firmly behind Erik ten Hag because they need to learn their lesson. Is that something you can get behind, Dan?
No.
No?
No. I just think that it's not the same set of players anymore, is it? If you think about it.
I think that excuse is gone now, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple that are still sprinkled in there.
I can two that come to my mind, Rashford and Bruno are the only ones that firstly come to my mind, I think. You could possibly say
Could they be creating issues in the camp?
I doubt it.
I prefer not to speak.
but then you could also say Delo as well, but I highly doubt it as well. He doesn't seem like that type of guy. I know he's been on loan to AC Milan and come back, but there doesn't seem to be that. I mean, look, for instance, there's not been as many leaks in the dressing room as we've seen in prior seasons, I don't think. So there is more of a togetherness there, I think.
Just the Old Trafford roofs that leaks like mad. That's the only leaks that we're getting. We'll have to see, won't we? But let me go back to this then. So in terms of confidence, how are we feeling? FC Porto, Europa League. Again, it's not where we want to be, but bloody hell, it could have been a lot worse. Should have been playing Conference League football.
Yeah,
you know, this time.
I mean,
well, now, right now,
would have suited us, to be fair.
if we hadn't have won the FA Cup,
probably would have found that level.
That was our level.
Yeah, in terms of confidence, look, at the end of the day, call it a blind faith. I always back Manchester United in any game. You know, there are, of course, you know, normally games where you don't expect us to get much out of it. But for me, as I've already mentioned, extremely difficult away from home against Porto, regardless of the vein we're going in. I think Porto, you know, got off to a decent start in general. The second, you know, they're particularly good team in general. So for me, it's never going to be easy. Obviously, atmosphere is something that I'm worried about. I think Manchester United players, in particular in the last maybe 4 or 5 years, they've really crumbled over hostile atmospheres, especially when it goes against us and let's say they score first. Then I would really be worried. So I feel like for us, we have to score first, silence the crowd a bit and just weather that storm. You know, it really does depend on the first 15 minutes. We have to weather that storm. It's really important. If you go behind early, again, like we did against Tottenham, we could be in a situation where we crumble. So I'm quietly confident. I do think the Rasmus Hojlund thing has definitely perked me up a bit. I think with his quality in front of goal, I'm hoping you guys are right in suggesting that there is more sort of supply to the forward line. And obviously, with him on the end of that, I'm more confident that he's likely to score over Zirkzee.
Yeah, I'm getting devastated here. Jason, I just thought I'd dip into the normal chat, see what's happening. Says, Kevin, interrupting other people speaking is exhausting. Laugh out loud. I'm sorry, lads. Sorry about that. He's
got number 7 on his gun to his head.
Exactly. You can't diss me in this top, man. This is, it's godlike. Make sure you get your score predictions into the chat now. I am looking at that. Michael Skelton, welcome to the United Stand Members Club. So in terms of a kind of score prediction, I know it is difficult. And the Godfather usually sits in that seat. He hates me asking him this question. He always goes, don't ask me about score predictions. But
I've got one.
I say I have to do it. Go on.
Yeah, 2-1 Rasmus Braids. I just think, like I've already said, his quality in front of goal is going to carry us. He was phenomenal in the Champions League, and I'm hoping he carries that bit of confidence through into the Europa League.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for 2-2. United haven't
2-2, plenty of goals.
United haven't lost against Portuguese opposition since 2005. So
until now,
if there's something to go off, if there's a good omen, it's definitely that. Porto did have a good record in the Champions League last season. They gave Arsenal a really good game, completely unbeaten at home in the Champions League last season. And they have got a Bruno Fernandes as well in their manager, Vitor, I think his name is. So we know what to expect from Porto, like we've said in the preview today. They are going to be a tough opposition to come up against, but I do think that a 2-2 draw sort of will be a fair scoreline, previewing it anyway, just because, like you said as well, Hojlund starting, if the balls do get into the box, into Hojlund, and he takes his chances, this could be a revitalised United, we say.
That's the spirit. That's what I like to hear. Just as we wrap up on that, I will just make sure I've read all the super chats. I always like to give a lot of love out to them. We have got Breach... Oh no, I've already read that. Avi, Michael Skelton and Daniel Fox, welcome to the United Stand Members Club. Adebayayi, Sorry if I got it wrong again. Pronunciation. Eric has hurt me with what he has done to this team. I hope for Gareth Southgate, pragmatic back-pass football is the way forward. And what a note to end on, an absolute sarcastic note. Usually we hand over to Mark Goldbridge now, we raid his chat. The last couple of times I've done this, I've got in mega trouble because we had one where Tull, for the Community Shield, said, tell him, spam the chat with saying that Bruno was injured and McTominay was starting. Mark went into meltdown because everybody was saying, I don't bloody believe it. I've not heard this. McTominay's starting. Last week, Jordan was back and I've been on the channel years. He's Welsh, so he said spam the chat with sheep emojis. Mark did not know what was going on and going mad, so we'll try and keep it where Kev does not get in trouble for one evening. I was away last week. Everyone was speculating. He's been sacked. It was the sheep emojis. He's a goner. What should we spam the chat with? Some kind of positivity, or it's got to be Rasmus in capital letters, hasn't it? Rasmus. That's what it is. So if you're in the chat now, you can head over to Mark Goldbridge live watch along of FC Porto against Manchester United. Make sure you spam that chat while you enter the room with Rasmus. Tull, Usmaan. It's been emotional, great. We'll be back for the forum later on, as well as Dan. Thank you very much for your input. Hope you have enjoyed it. You've been watching the biggest Man United fan channel in the land. This was the United Stand. Come on, United!